Hey guys, welcome back to another Sketchbook Sessions live session. Last time I left off these guys right here, but this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to work on some of my comic book stuff. As soon as I get out a pencil and a pen, we'll be off. And just to give you guys a tour of what I've worked on in the past, I did some plants here, this ranger dude, and some houses, and that's the start of the book. So, let's get on with it, shall we? I am working on this comic book here. This is just a mock up, a rough draft, if you will. Been working on this comic book for a long time, but I just haven't managed to get it finished. Yeah, maybe like 4 more pages to knock out rough draft wise, and then I can go in with final details. Tonight I'm going to do the cover. So, without further ado, I'm just going to try and recreate this right here, but a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer. And then I can always clean it up digitally afterward. So I had this path that kind of went up to about there, give or take. Tree on the right side, tree on the left side. I want to kind of leave out some space for the title of my book too. So I'm going to block off that. And just to reiterate, this is what I'm actually doing here. This is a rough draft of my comic book that I'm almost ready to publish. But just need the cover. So I'm going to try a little harder than I did here. This was, I don't know, 5 minutes, give or take. But I'm going to try and maybe in the next hour get a really good inked version of that drawing. The house is in the background somewhere around here. The tree has vines and crap, leaves, porch, and then there's like this bridge that I put in there. Oops, the bridge is part of the path. Duh. And then there's like some kind of waterway. I'll refine that as I go further, but it's trying to lay down a rough sketch at the moment. Since it's in kind of a swamp, rainforesty thing, I want to add more trees as well. How you guys doing tonight? I'm working on my comic book. Thanks. Comic book's called Under the Black Flag. It's about pirates and adventure and cool shit like that. And I do a lot of world building on this channel if you haven't seen that already. But you could check out the link in the description for my website, and eventually I'm going to put the PDFs of this comic book for free on the website. So it's always good to stay subscribed, and you won't miss that. And I had like a pyre with a skull on it. Just to make it extra creepy. Trying to knock in values as quickly as possible so that when I go over it with a pen, it'll be just easier to read and I won't make so many mistakes. Also, I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to do with the title yet because I think that my handwriting is shit and I might just do it digitally, but then I think doing it digitally is super boring too. So I don't know, maybe I'll try and learn calligraphy or something. All right, I think that's a pretty good start. Now I'm going to just start from the bottom and work my way up with a pretty small pen, 0.2. Yeah, thank you. Witness Protection 4233. I think I'm going to get one of those disposable calligraphy pens and play around with it. Oh, it's not hard. I beg to differ. But then again, I'm not someone who does a lot of lettering. Although I do all the lettering on my like text of the book. I think I'm already feeling that this 0.2 is a little too small for my purposes. Might try and look for a bigger one here in a minute. Trying to really make this feel like a dark, scary jungle, honestly. The character that lives here is like a like a voodoo witch. Oh, that's definitely a good point with the water soluble pens. I do a lot of watercolor and a lot of like alcohol marker things, and the alcohol markers also run those kinds of pens, which is not ideal. I've got to throw down some different line weights here. I don't even know if that's large enough. There we go. right. I think this house is going to be different than that. I think it's going to be more at an angle. About like that. That gives me some more interest, I think. Still keep the door here. And it's still going to have like an old rickety looking porch thing. Thanks, Josie Tower. All right, that's more what I'm going for. I want it to be like real kind of funky, fantasy funky. Maybe with a little chimney poking up. Never really use an eraser just because I like to preserve some of the lines that I've already made with the pencil, just in case I decide to change my mind. And you can see how well that's actually worked. It was real easy to change my mind with the way the house was aligned. In my mind, I picture this house kind of dilapidated, like still usable. Someone obviously lives here in the story, but it's not great. So it doesn't really matter if any of these lines are super straight. I just see them as old, like boards weather worn really badly. So the path kind of goes along up the bridge and straight to the front door of the house. Speaking of the door, I need a door. And then just to give this house like some actual placement on the environment, I'm going to put the horizon line kind of behind it. And some little marks that indicate grass and flowers and things like that. And maybe some more trees behind that. All right. I am going to use some markers. Using markers over pencil sketch is completely fine in my opinion, but it's going to lock in the pencil there. In which case I really don't want that, especially if I plan on touching this up digitally. One thing I really should have done is these markers bleed through the pages pretty bad. So I need another piece of paper real quick. Putting a piece of paper behind your work just will kind of prevent bleeding through to the next page. My theory so far is that if I just work on this grayscale, like if I just put gray marker and black ink, then I can go back and color it digitally fairly easily. If I was using colored markers, it would be a lot harder to really refine those colors. kind of making up the light source as I go along, but so far I kind of picture it coming from the house, to be honest. Doesn't really matter as long as it's just uniform throughout. And you just kind of remember where that light source is, but you can make it up. I think I need to get a stronger line weight on the river thing. You know what? I'm just going to refine the idea of the light source by adding torch, maybe? Kind of wish I'd thought of this whole torch idea earlier. But that's all right. The more values I add, the more apparent it'll be that that's light coming from it. See, from the person who commented earlier about water soluble pens bleeding, it's already happening a little bit with alcohol markers. I'm not so concerned about it at the moment, but it is kind of a pain. Try and do the most stuff I can traditionally, but I will be touching this up digitally anyway. All these squiggly pointy lines are supposed to be vegetation, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. Just trying to get the gist of everything. This thing's way too small scale for me to start drawing every little plant. All right, now I need to focus on the upper part a little bit. So again, I'm going to do something a little bit fancier with that, maybe tonight, but soon. I just want to make sure I have the title there so I don't start drawing over it. Move this up a little bit out of the chat area. For the leaves, I'm going to do similar to the way I did the grass, which is just making like gesture marks, really. I don't want to draw every leaf. And then I'm going to go over all these areas with different kinds of gray anyway. Values or where this is really going to shine. Add some moss all over the trees. Always good to add a little bit of detail whenever you can. I also thought I might want some kind of like carving or weird shit on the trees too. Maybe this one has got some strange symbols carved into it. Trying to look up like fonts, and every image I clicked on takes me into like an Etsy store of buying fonts. Everybody's trying to sell everything these days. I left myself enough room for all that. Might as well just concentrate on the drawing, the thing I'm actually good at. Or like the earlier commenter was telling me to get a calligraphy pen or fountain pen. Might have to get some new tools to accomplish this text. If I have a darker gray. Let's see what this does. Oh yeah, that's a little better. I really want to push the fact that it's nighttime. So if anyone here who did not see the beginning of the video, this is what I'm working on. Thumbnail image I drew for a rough draft of a comic that I'm working on. Few pages so far. Story's not really written down in that book, but it's written down in a document, Google document. Actually kind of like the bleeding that the ink is doing with these markers. Just kind of subdues the ink marks a little bit. And this marker is almost toast. I don't know if this other one's too dark for the river. I need some other tree shapes back here too. I don't want it to feel too much like it's an empty forest. think I'm getting pretty close to what I wanted to accomplish. I don't know. I think that's about it. From the thumbnail to the finished product. Like I said, the title's probably going to be digital. You know what? Maybe the tree, like leaf line, needs some bit heavier ink. All right. Let me know what you guys think on a comment, but I think this live session is about over. Set up for what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a cover for my latest issue of my comic book. And that's it. Hope you guys have a good night. Bye.